Netanyahu confirms Jerusalem, a city marked by centuries of prophecies and tensions, is now the stage for a new alarm. What does this really mean for the future of humanity? How can we interpret Netanyahu's words and the signs unfolding before our eyes? This video goes beyond the headlines and offers fundamental lessons to help us spiritually prepare for the difficult times ahead. Are you ready to face what is to come? How can the wisdom of prophecies guide us in an increasingly uncertain world? Stay with us and discover answers that can transform your perspective and faith. Amid the current events in Jerusalem, the sound of an alarm resonates, raising deep questions about the future of humanity. What do the ancient prophecies have to say about what is happening now? How do Netanyahu's words connect with biblical warnings and the times we are living through? In an increasingly uncertain world, it is crucial to understand how prophecies can spiritually prepare us for the challenges ahead. In this video, we will explore essential lessons to strengthen ourselves in the face of adversity. How can we spiritually prepare for what lies ahead? What should we learn from the signs being revealed before us? Stay with us until the end and discover answers that could transform your view of the future and the way you face tough times. Jerusalem, with its rich and tumultuous history, has always been more than just a city. For millions of people around the world, it is a sacred place, a point of convergence between the human and the divine. But beyond its religious value, Jerusalem plays an even more significant role in biblical prophecies. The Bible teaches us that crucial events for the destiny of nations and for the future of humanity will take place in this city. Jerusalem is not just a place on the map. It is a symbol of God's promises and warnings, a stage where the final events of human history will unfold. The Old Testament is clear in pointing to Jerusalem as the center of God's plan for the world. In various passages, God promises that the city will be a place where He will manifest His glory, but it will also be a place of judgment. In Isaiah 2:3, for example, we read, "And many nations shall come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us His ways, and we will walk in His paths.'" Here we see that Jerusalem will be the center of divine worship and education, a meeting place for all nations seeking the truth. But the text also implies that before this time of peace and harmony, Jerusalem will go through times of great tribulation. The city is also mentioned in Ezekiel 38:39, where a great battle, a war against Israel, is foretold to take place in the last days. Jerusalem, as the center of all the dispute, will be the focal point of the nation's attention. The prophet describes that after this battle, the Lord will cause all the nations to turn to Jerusalem, and His kingdom will be established there. The conflict and tension we see in the current Jerusalem scenario may be interpreted as a preparation for the events described in Ezekiel. Indeed, many scholars believe that the return of Jerusalem to Israel's control is one of the first key pieces in fulfilling these prophecies. Furthermore, Jerusalem plays a crucial role in the prophecy of the end times, especially in the New Testament. In Revelation 11:2 we read, "But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months." This passage is often interpreted as a warning about the future Jerusalem, which will be invaded and profaned before the return of Christ. The city, in this context, becomes the epicenter of a spiritual and political struggle that will have universal implications. However, when looking at Jerusalem, we cannot limit ourselves to the texts that speak of its destruction or conflict. The city is also a symbol of restoration and hope. Jesus Himself, when speaking about Jerusalem, said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to you, how often I have wanted to gather your children as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing." Matthew 23:37. This lament of Jesus expresses both the suffering of Jerusalem and the promise of its restoration. Jerusalem, therefore, has a dual role in biblical prophecies. It is a symbol of judgment, but also of hope. It represents both the challenges humanity will face and the promise that after the tribulation there will be a new beginning. The alarm heard in Jerusalem today can be seen as a sign that we are getting closer to the fulfillment of these prophecies. As current events unfold, many believe that we are witnessing the preparation for the events described in the Scriptures. What is happening today in Jerusalem is not just a political or military matter. It is a direct reflection of the ancient prophecies that speak of the city as the focal point for the events that will mark the end of times. The connection between Jerusalem and biblical prophecies is undeniable, and as we observe the world around us, we must ask ourselves, are we prepared for what is about to happen? What do the Scriptures teach us about our role in the face of these events, and how can we respond to this divine warning? The sound of the alarm in Jerusalem, a spiritual and political wake-up call, the sound of the alarm that echoed through Jerusalem did not go unnoticed. When the sirens rang, it was not only an alert to the city's inhabitants about possible imminent threats, but also a signal with much deeper spiritual and political implications. As we mentioned earlier, Jerusalem is an epicenter of prophetic meanings, and events like this lead us to reflect on the times we live in, the role the city plays in Scripture, and how people should prepare for the events that are to come. Spiritual meaning of the alarm. The alarm in Jerusalem can be interpreted in many ways, but spiritually it resonates with the idea of a call to preparation and vigilance. In several passages of the Bible, we are urged to be alert to the signs of the times, especially when it comes to the return of Christ. The alarm, then, is a sign that we are in a transitional phase, where humanity is called to reflect on its relationship with God and prepare spiritually for what is to come. In Matthew 24:42, Jesus tells us, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." The parable of the 10 virgins, which follows, emphasizes the need for continuous vigilance and preparation. The sound of the alarm in Jerusalem can be seen as a reminder that Christ's return is approaching. This is not the time to sleep spiritually or ignore the signs that are being given. Instead, it is a call to stay alert, to strengthen our faith, and to live in a way that reflects our commitment to God. Moreover, the alarm in Jerusalem could be interpreted as a sign that something great is about to happen, an event that will change the course of human history. This kind of alarm, which appears in several passages of Scripture, is not only a reaction to an immediate event, but a preparation for something bigger, something that comes with a global spiritual transformation. Just as the ancient Israelites were called to prepare for the coming of a Messiah, we too are called to be ready for the events that will mark the end of time. The alarm and global politics. In the political realm, the alarm in Jerusalem reflects the growing tension in the region, which has been at the center of disputes between nations and religions for decades. Jerusalem, being a sacred city for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, has always been a point of conflict, and its status remains one of the most difficult issues to resolve in the Middle East. In recent years, the city has been the stage for political decisions that reverberate across the world, such as the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel by several world powers, a decision that dramatically altered the political dynamics in the region. In times of increasing political polarization, the alarm in Jerusalem cannot be ignored. It is a reflection of the growing tension, not only in terms of national security, but also in the global political arena. The city, with its profound and complex symbolism, becomes a microcosm of the political struggles that are shaping the future of nations. The words of political leaders, such as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have an impact not only on Israel, but on the global balance of power. In the current context, the presence of international forces in Jerusalem, the dispute over its sovereignty, and the status of its sacred sites are issues that generate constant alarm in political and diplomatic spheres. The international community is keenly watching the developments happening there, as decisions made in Jerusalem can trigger consequences for world peace. However, what many may not realize is that this political alarm also has a spiritual component. The political tensions surrounding Jerusalem, paradoxically, are interlinked with biblical prophecies about the city. The confrontation between nations over Jerusalem is clearly described in several passages of Scripture, such as Zechariah 12:3. On that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who try to lift it will be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will gather against it. The alarm is not only a sign of physical danger for the city's inhabitants, but also a sign that the world is approaching a crucial moment in its history. Furthermore, the political alarm can be interpreted as a reflection of internal struggles within nations, not just outside them. The way world powers deal with Jerusalem speaks volumes about their own religious and spiritual stances. By making decisions that affect the city's fate, these nations may be unwittingly fulfilling divine plans that describe Jerusalem as the center of the final conflict. The political tensions are not only a reflection of geopolitical interests, but also a fulfillment of prophecies about the last days. Conclusion of the chapter. The alarm as a sign of change. The alarm in Jerusalem, then, is not just a response to an immediate threat. It is a symbol that something bigger is unfolding, something that goes beyond politics or security. It is a sign that prophecies are being fulfilled and that we are on the brink of a great change in the world stage. On a spiritual level, it calls us to vigilance, reflection, and preparation for the events to come. Politically, it is a reminder of the tensions surrounding Jerusalem and the global implications that any action taken in the city could have. However, whatever the interpretation, one thing is certain: the alarm in Jerusalem is calling us to action, reflection, and preparation for the future. Benjamin Netanyahu, as the Prime Minister of Israel, plays a crucial role not only in his country's politics, but also in the global dynamics surrounding Jerusalem. His statements and actions often provoke intense reactions, and his stance on issues such as the status of Jerusalem has profound implications for both Israel and the rest of the world. For scholars of Scripture and observers of biblical prophecies, Netanyahu's words can be seen as a key to understanding the connection between the present and what is to come in the last days. But how do Netanyahu's statements relate to the ancient prophecies about Jerusalem? Could he unknowingly be fulfilling a prophetic role? Recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. One of Netanyahu's most significant actions was his insistence on maintaining Jerusalem as the indivisible capital of Israel. This position has generated international tension, particularly among Arab countries and the international community, which has long advocated for a two-state solution, with Jerusalem being a shared city between Israelis and Palestinians. However, Netanyahu has always emphasized the importance of Jerusalem to the Jewish people, not only as the political capital, but also as a spiritual and historical center. This emphasis on the status of Jerusalem as Israel's capital has a strong prophetic resonance. In various biblical passages, the city is presented not only as the political capital of Israel, but as the center of God's kingdom on earth. Jesus Christ himself, during his ministry, spoke of Jerusalem as a place of judgment, but also of restoration. In Luke 21:24, Jesus prophesied, "And they will fall by the sword and be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled." The phrase, "until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled," has been interpreted as the period when Jerusalem will be under foreign control, but will one day return to the domain of the Jewish people. Netanyahu, by reaffirming Israel's sovereignty over Jerusalem, may unknowingly be fulfilling the role of the city's restorer, as predicted in Scripture. Moreover, Netanyahu, by resisting international pressure to divide Jerusalem, is symbolically reaffirming the promise made to Abraham that God would give the land of Israel as an eternal inheritance. Israel's insistence on keeping Jerusalem as its capital is thus directly connected to the divine promise recorded in Genesis 17:8. "And I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession." The restoration of the state of Israel and prophetic fulfillment. The restoration of the state of Israel in 1948 is seen by many as the fulfillment of biblical prophecies about the return of the Jewish people to their homeland in the last days. Netanyahu, as the leader of this restored state, carries a significant role in the issues surrounding the city of Jerusalem. The prophet Ezekiel, in Ezekiel 36:24-28, speaks of a time when God will bring the Jews back to their land and purify them. This return to the land, the restoration of Israel's sovereignty over Jerusalem, and the building of a strong and prosperous nation are seen as clear signs that the end times are approaching. "For I will take you from among the nations, and gather you from all the countries, and bring you back to your own land," says Ezekiel 36:24. This return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, which culminated with the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, is considered by many as the beginning of the fulfillment of biblical prophecies. Netanyahu, by leading the state of Israel in the 21st century, is, in a sense, leading the fulfillment of these prophecies, even though he and many of his compatriots may not be aware of this connection. The restoration of Jerusalem as Israel's indivisible capital is also tied to this idea of prophetic fulfillment. During the last days, the scriptures speak of a spiritual and political restoration of Jerusalem, and this is precisely what we are witnessing in the actions of Netanyahu's government. The city of Jerusalem, which has been destroyed and rebuilt several times throughout history, seems now to be more centered in God's plan than ever, with political and religious focus firmly established. Netanyahu and the prophetic role among the nations, but Netanyahu's connection to the prophecies about Jerusalem is not limited to Israel's internal politics. His role is also intrinsically tied to the global geopolitical scenario. The way nations react to Netanyahu's actions, especially regarding Jerusalem, can be seen as a reflection of the prophecies that speak about the opposition of the nations to the people of Israel in the last days. In Zechariah 12:2-3, we read, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling to all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it." Netanyahu's statements, which often challenge international pressure, place Israel in a defiant role before the nations. This can be interpreted as the fulfillment of prophecies about the final conflict over Jerusalem, where nations will attempt to dominate the city but will be defeated. Netanyahu's resistance to international pressure is, therefore, a manifestation of a larger role he is playing in fulfilling God's divine plan for the city. Conclusion: Netanyahu's leadership and the fulfillment of prophecies. Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership is not just a political matter. It has profound spiritual and prophetic implications. His actions and statements about Jerusalem, such as his insistence on the city's indivisibility and his opposition to international pressure for its division, can be seen as part of a greater fulfillment of biblical prophecies about the last days. On a spiritual level, he is, perhaps unknowingly, reaffirming Jerusalem's role as the center of God's plan for the world, a center of conflict, but also of restoration. The connection between Netanyahu's words and actions and the ancient prophecies about Jerusalem is undeniable, and this leads us to reflect on the importance of being alert to the signs around us. Are we indeed living on the brink of the fulfillment of these ancient promises?